Hello and welcome to the news here live at 7 on FeckTV.com with myself, Noel Byrne. Joining me this evening is Mr. Alan Noonan. And we're going to kick it off tonight with the story that Justice Paul Carney in the criminal court in Dublin has backtracked on his decision to allow 72-year-old Patrick O'Brien out on bail. Mr. O'Brien is now to serve a 3-year sentence. The other 9 years of his 12-year sentence were suspended. He has, of course, been convicted of the rape and sexual assault of his daughter, Fiona Doyle, over a 10-year period as she was growing up. The judge said his sentencing was confusing and inappropriate, and he also apologised for the outrage he had caused in the public domain. Fiona Doyle, speaking afterwards outside the court, said that she had felt vindicated, and she also told the media that she would like to ask her dad, as a sign of remorse, not to appeal the 3-year sentence. She says this 3-year sentence, now in his present state, is a lifetime. She also said that he might now feel the loneliness, the lack of support and the isolation that I have felt over the past 40 years. Alan, were you expecting such a U-turn today from the judge?
I wasn't actually. But I guess my impersonation or my interpretation of it is it kind of makes a mockery of the whole independence of the judicial system when he's been such a big U-turn after the public outcry over this decision.
Yeah, I wonder, will it be a case of, will people be looking on this now and maybe asking for some sort of larger review of the type of court independence that's there at the moment, or, is it as independent, as you said, as we think? Yeah,
I wonder what's going to happen with that. I have to laugh as well when I heard that Enda Kenny was planning on meeting this woman, apparently just to talk to her. Like, he can't actually comment on the case because of judicial independence. He can't help her out with regards to anything. So for
it seems like a bit of a media stunt to me anyway.
Absolutely.
Which, wouldn't surprise us with the current coalition. But you've got other news for us.
Absolutely. Going over to the States now, we're looking at the Irish nanny, Aisling McCarthy Brady, who is being accused of murdering 1-year-old Rima Sabir. The court documents released yesterday showed that she had a violent past and that she has 2 restraining orders against her, one of which was as recent as March 2012. Further information released today by the courts show that blood-stained baby wipes and clothes were also found at the scene of the crime. So it seems like that the more that is revealed about this case, the more likely that she is.
When this story emerged earlier this week, I think I was like a lot of other Irish people and sympathised with her. And then, as the days have gone on and more information has come out about her past, it seems more and more likely that she will be found guilty of this murder.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that.
Elsewhere today, the Gardaí confirmed the sudden death of Dolours Price, aged 61. She was, of course, famous, I suppose, around the country for the wrong reasons. She was charged with the very first car bomb attack in London in 1973, which was carried out by the Provisional IRA, of which she was a part of. She was found dead at her house in Malahide in County Dublin, and they presume it may have been a drug overdose, and Gardaí are not suspecting any foul play at the moment. It's an interesting life that she has led, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of particular interest at the moment is regarding these interviews that were done by Boston College with dozens of people in the north with regards to the Troubles. And one of the people who had been interviewed by Boston College was Dolours Price. And she had revealed some information that she had spoken about in an interview which dealt with this criminality going back to the Troubles, and it implicated other people apparently. Now, the British authorities had requested this information be sent to them. They had sent a subpoena to the American courts, and this was working its way up to the Supreme Court. It's waiting to be actually seen in the Supreme Court. Boston College was trying to hold on to them, saying that this was private property, this was not intended to be released information. And what's funny is that this could almost be considered Northern Ireland's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Now, that's happened in a few different places, but generally, when a Truth and Reconciliation service happens in particular countries that have undergone things like, for example, South Africa's apartheid regime, there is an amnesty given to people who are giving testimony, but that was not granted in these interviews, and therefore this information goes out. So at least, even if the information is gotten by the British authorities, she will not go to jail now because she has since passed away.
Yeah, hearing Gerry Adams, speak today following the fact that she had died, he doesn't even, he said he wasn't concerned in any shape or form about the content of the interviews. It'll be interesting to see if he's going to come under more pressure now, because he's consistently refused, any allegations that were thrown at him in terms of his involvement with the IRA. So it could be a very, very rocky few months ahead for both Gerry Adams and indeed Sinn Féin as a whole.
I'm just feeling echoes of the Lance Armstrong story. He's claiming,
Yeah.
sorry, totally different.
I wonder who will interview him.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with that case. Moving on now to North Korea. North Korea is having further nuclear tests, which the North Korean Defense Commission has stated are aimed at the United States, and they are part of an upcoming all-out action. Now, these words are, like I said, from the National Defense Commission of North Korea, who further said that settling accounts with the US needs to be done with force, not with words, as it regards jungle law as the rule of its survival. So very strong stuff there from North Korea.
Do you know, every week I feel like another story emerges about North Korea, and the place is just sounding crazier and crazier the whole time. I was interested to read that analysts, the way they're looking at the intended point of this test by North Korea, is that North Korea is trying to expand their nuclear abilities, and they're saying that this is so they can, send them to the US, but that this particular test isn't for sending them to the US. So it's kind of like, we're planning this for the future, just to let you know. It's an interesting one as well for China, because they back North Korea, but
Absolutely.
they also supported regulations put forward in 2006, I think it was, in 2009, to not do this type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to stick by their ally or kind of
yeah, exactly. Well,
go with the Western side.
Jinping, the next Chinese president, he's come out and he said he's opposed to these moves, and the foreign minister for China has also said that he's opposed to any move which may be seen as an escalation of what's going on there. And of course, the strangest thing about North Korea is almost that the place is undergoing periodical famine. The population are under the boot of this terribly repressive regime, and yet it somehow manages to keep trundling forward and keep going. This is the third nuclear test that North Korea has actually done. So
their tests usually aren't that great, though. I mean, there was one earlier last year that just seemed like a complete failure altogether. Now they're claiming, of course, that it was a great success.
But this was the missile test to send a satellite into space, wasn't it?
Yeah, it didn't really go too well for them. Now I imagine, to a certain point, we'll say powers like the US or Britain or other European powers probably aren't too concerned as of yet with the scale of what North Korea is at. But I'd imagine if things do progress quite well with this one, that concerns will be heightened.
Well, the real problem, Noel, is actually for countries who are nearer to North Korea. Once North Korea is able to develop its medium-range ballistic missiles, you've got Australia, Japan, and China itself, who are involved in the radius of what is effectively a bit of a maniacally crazy regime.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It sounds like the storyline of some sort of crazy film, but it's real life for North Korea. Moving to somewhere that's completely different, Leitrim, and Mulross Nursing Home in Kilclare in County Leitrim is under fire from the HIQA today after they released a report, and it found that residents' files contained lines such as "do not resuscitate." Now, the report also said that the families had not backed this, and the residents themselves had no way known about this either. The HSE took control of the nursing home earlier this month on January 4th. They've now closed the facility, and all residents have been moved on as well. It also highlighted the report that the system in place increased the risk of medical errors as well. It included crushing tablets that weren't meant to be crushed, and also that no max dosage had been identified in various cases as well as the fact that residents, there was some instance where they had been bruised and that was left out of the care file. There was a huge array of problems highlighted at the nursing home. I suppose it's one of the pluses from HIQA being set up that this type of thing is now coming to light, because the nursing home has been around since the late 80s, and there will be many other incidences as well like this in other nursing homes. I guess it's a case of, this is one of those times where taxpayers' money is being well spent, that this is coming to light, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not they'll actually open the home again for the HSE, because there was 32 staff let go as a result.
Yeah, it's another kind of indication as well, Noel, that this sort of abuse that was going on in these homes is almost systematic. It was going on through the 70s, 60s. It was part of a general sort of, I suppose, idea in our society that they're over there, they're not something that we need to worry about, and what goes on there really isn't relevant to us. So I think it's a great move that at least this abuse was found and that the facility has been shut down.
Moving on, and in other news, the Following talks with government negotiators today, Croke Park 2, of course, being discussed, the Association of Garda Sergeants and Inspectors have revealed that they may pull out of talks with the government. This is mainly due to the fact that the government want to cut back on pay, in particular for Saturdays, Sundays, bank holidays and overnight pay as well. And they say this is a huge proportion of Garda pay. The AGSI have said they're going to hold a special meeting tomorrow morning to fully decide on what their plan of action will be tomorrow afternoon in terms of meeting with the government. They're also said they are quite worried about the threat that the government can legislate for the pay cuts regardless of how unions react to it. What do you think of this move? Is it right of the Gardaí to, threaten industrial action and pay cuts?
It seems to me, Noel, that so far you don't need to worry too much about industrial action from the Gardaí. This is the inspectors and the sergeants fighting the cause for inspectors and sergeants rather than the rank and file of the Gardaí. Now the question is whether or not the union for sergeants and inspectors can actually get the Garda representative authority to rally behind them, and then they would have some cause. But I think the government will actually face them down. They might try and use a bit of a carrot and stick approach and might increase some of the benefits, but I think that they probably realised that the government is going into Croke Park 2 with some very hard terms of negotiation, really seeking to sort of put their stall out and say that we can be tough on the civil service.
I'd imagine with so many cuts coming down the line for the frontline services like the Gardaí or nurses as well, that the Garda Representative Association will probably join their sergeants and inspectors. Do you not think? I
wonder. It will be interesting to see. They won't be, the Garda sergeants and inspectors will have to wait until, if the Garda Representative Association don't back them, they've got nothing. They are out on their own, out on a limb. So it's a gamble by them actually more so than the Gardaí generally.
Times considering, with so many Garda stations closing around the country, and now there might be a threat of Gardaí going on strike, that crime rates in Ireland are bound to increase over the next months.
The question whether or not we'll get another blue flu is rather interesting. I think that the public backlash against the last one will probably mean that something like that will never happen again. But whether or not there will be some other sort of industrial action remains to be seen.
We'll have to wait and see. Okay, you've got something a little bit different first to round us off tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. 15,000 crocodiles escaped in South Africa, a South African reptile farm, and half of them have been recovered so far. The crocodiles escaped after flooding, and the Limpopo River flooded and the crocodiles escaped into the river. One of the crocodiles was recaptured 75 miles away on a school rugby pitch. This is part of more widespread flooding that has taken place in South Africa and Mozambique. 20 people have actually lost their lives in the flooding. It's been quite serious, but 7,500 crocodiles are still awfully large.
You'd be very worried if you were living in the region. I mean, that one that was found 70 to 80 kilometres away, he had fairly motored, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And, I didn't think they could actually move that fast themselves unless they were in water, but apparently they can.
Having seen a good few Discovery Channel programmes, they're quite fast actually when they're in water.
It'd be interesting if anyone brings a case against anyone over it, if they're get injured or bitten or chased by some sort of crocodile.
Yeah, maybe the family who will have to take the case if somebody is eaten by a crocodile. Hopefully nobody will be, but 7,000 crocodiles can make an awful lot of damage.
I feel like there's a pun hidden in there. I can't get a hold of it, so we'll have to wait and see if we get anything else out of that. Okay, that's it for Feck TV News. Don't forget that tonight at 10 o'clock we're going to be talking youth immigration and working abroad. Is it as good as it seems, in particular in Australia? That is live at 10 p.m. here on FeckTV.com. Don't forget to tune in.